Go ahead.
What is it? The inertia projector. It's a device for throwing electrical waves capable of paralyzing alternate and direct currents at their source.
The inertia projector. It not only makes the United States invincible in war, but in so doing promises to become the greatest force for world peace ever discovered.
It was sometime.
So it has nothing to do with this at all. And yet, by playing this now, in 2017, from this PBS show in 1998, who looks stupid now? The movie looks actually quite responsible, doesn't it? And PBS looks quite stupid. Go ahead.
Times difficult for Ronald Reagan to distinguish fantasy from reality.
I tell you. Oh, yes, he couldn't distinguish fantasy from reality. Really appalling. Go ahead.
He believed in this so strongly that he began to think that SDI was in existence when it wasn't even on the drawing board.
What? What is he talking about? Now, Luke Cannon has over the years become more favorable toward Reagan. He came out of, I believe, out of Sacramento or L.A. He had covered him when he was governor, and then wrote as a journalist for the Washington Post about Reagan, covered the White House and so forth. But it's preposterous. Reagan didn't believe it existed. Did you not just hear the speech that I heard? What did he say? We may not have the technology now, but we will, hopefully, in the future, and there'll be setbacks. Did he say, hey, look what we have? No, he didn't. Go.
That's he so passionately wanted there to be a nuclear defense.
In a loose way, it's a religious notion of the city of God surrounded by an inviolable barrier. The weapons of the heathen will bounce off our shield.
This is his official biographer. Does he sound like a kook? Look how they're projecting all this weird crap onto Ronald Reagan. You heard what Reagan said. You know what's been done since. Who looks like a fool now? Go ahead.
And shatter into fragments. We will be inviolable here beneath this shield. Shield, shield. He used the word shield a lot.
Reagan presented SDI as a benign shield. The soothing rhetoric may have disguised another motive.
I think President Reagan saw SDI as being yet another pressure on the Soviets, something that they could not withstand, and I think he was right.
And that Reagan imagination, where he couldn't tell science from reality. Remember that? Oh, yes, it couldn't tell science from reality. He sounded very rational to me, didn't he, in 1983 when he gave those comments? Everybody projecting in 1998 for PBS, well, he had a problem, you know. He's an actor, and then they play the film from 1930. Oh, he's so weird, it's so ridiculous. And now look at it. What next, ladies and gentlemen? Lasers being shot from guns? Lasers being shot from aircraft? Lasers being shot from ships to blow missiles out of the sky, jets out of the sky? Oh my, is that possible, or am I losing my mind? No, it's not only possible, we're working on it, and we're starting to perfect it. Check this out. Go.
Incoming. When heard on the battlefield, it could mean a rapidly approaching mortar round. The United States Army's High Energy Laser Mobile Demonstrator, or HELMD, has shown that lasers can disable such threats.
So this is a 60mm mortar. It's very cheap, inexpensive, and can cause a lot of damage.
Stop. Just shot a mortar out of the sky with a laser. Go ahead.
This is about 10 inches in length, and we can target this with a dime-sized beam.
Using a high-energy laser, the Army's system targets, tracks, and destroys a mortar traveling hundreds of miles per hour from many miles out.
When we put that really tight spot on this mortar, for example, you could think of that as being almost like a butane torch that's been brought to a really fine, tight flame, and you're literally applying it right to the surface of the mortar. And you can imagine that if you had a mortar and you did that it wouldn't take very long before you would get the inside hot, which is where the high energy explosive is. And if you heat that high energy explosive up to a high enough temperature, why, it'll detonate.
The Army system would provide an umbrella for the ground troops underneath. 3 trucks, strategically placed, could defend a battalion against mortar rounds and more.
And these are the slowest targets that we deal with of the rockets, artillery, mortar grouping. Rockets are in the 600 to, let's say, 1,000 miles an hour, something in that kind of range. And yet we make these look as if they're standing still.
The Army outfitted the LMD with existing technology. The laser sits on an Oshkosh truck, and an operator can track targets with a video game controller.
Something that they can just pick up and it feels natural to them.
The only cost of operating the system is fueling the onboard electrical power systems. It only takes a small amount of diesel fuel to fire the laser long enough to destroy a mortar.
And so not only is this system very high tech, but it's also very cost effective. And it's hard to find solutions that have all of the high tech, pushing the state of the art capability, which are also the most cost effective solution.
Wow. All started with an idea, a Reagan idea. Defense. Defend the American people. Defend our combat soldiers on the battlefield. Defend our jets, defend our ships. Defense, in addition to offense. But nobody thought like that. No president did, until he did. Because he loved America, he had faith in America, American know-how, American technology, the American people. He knew if we put our minds to it, we could do it. You know, when JFK said, after he became president, that by the end of the decade, we would have a man on the moon, people rallied around that. Here, when Ronald Reagan talked about Strategic Defense Initiative, you saw he was mocked. He was mocked. And there were efforts by Democrats in Congress to block all funding. And when they couldn't block all funding, to slash all funding, to push us back. Now imagine if we had these missiles, these systems, this protective surface he talked about throughout the United States. Wouldn't you feel a little safer? I think I would. And so now we're pressing it even further, as we discussed earlier in the first part of the program, with these ICBM missiles hitting ICBM missiles. If Reagan hadn't launched the Strategic Defense Initiative, we'd be behind 40 years. 40 years. 40 years is a long time to catch up with all these technological changes when it comes to offensive missiles in the hands of absolute psychopaths. Psychopaths. And one final reminder before we go. Ted Kennedy on Star Wars on C-SPAN. This is 1988. Just 4 years after he was conspiring with the highest levels of the Soviets, at the highest level of their government, to prevent Ronald Reagan from being reelected president of the United States. Now, you want to talk about collusion. You want to talk about criminality. You want to talk about any of these issues that they throw around when it comes to Trump. Ted Kennedy's your man. Go.
For at this very moment, the United States and the Soviet Union are in a unique position to strike a far-reaching bargain. The choice is not Star Wars tomorrow or start today. The Soviets have made it clear that they are ready for deep reductions in strategic weapons without significantly jeopardizing the possibility of Star Wars in the future. I continue to believe that Star Wars is an impossible dream that will only add tens of billions of dollars to the deficit, while setting off a dangerous and destabilizing spiral in the nuclear arms race.
Yeah. Well, he was wrong, as he always was. And thank the good Lord he was never president, and Ronald Reagan was. This is a very, very important technology, very important advancement, particularly given Iran and North Korea, and given the fact that Obama will hand, and did, nuclear technology, in essence, to the regime in Iran, as Clinton did to the regime in North Korea. That's it.